This is White Plains Week, the weekly roundup of White Plains, Westchester, and world news. With John Bailey, editor and publisher of the daily internet newspaper White Plains Citizen Net Reporter, WPCNR.com. Jim Beneroff, editor and publisher of SuburbanStreet.com and WhitePlains.com. White Plains Week, what's happening, who are the newsmakers, what's in store for the future. The views and opinions expressed on this program are solely those of the participants. White Plains Week is presented on Optimum Cable Channel 76, Verizon Fios Channel 45, and on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, and wpcommunitymedia.org. Now, White Plains Week.
Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. and Ms. White Plains, Westchester, and the world. The old Citizen Net Reporter here with the White Plains Week. Now, to the headlines. Westchester County quarantines 26 returnees from China. Westchester Power's Dan Welch says solar consortiums are spreading across the state. Sewage sinks Fort Lauderdale. Chemicals pollute Cape Fear River in North Carolina. Cancer-causing PCBs in water supply. And heat cooks Vegas. Important environmental stories with a dire future for Westchester County. Westchester congressional delegation hears pleas from citizens on state budget at the county center. Adam Schleifer to open campaign challenging Buchwald for the Lowy seat in Congress February 29th, along with a host of others. The Winbrook second building finally goes down, and now there are 4 to go to build. Democratic debate Wednesday a doozy, as Red Barber, the old sportscaster, would say. White Plains unveils a video showcasing White Plains, New York, USA, and we're going to show that to you. The Common Council holds an executive session Thursday evening on an appointment to some position not defined. Wonder what it was. Washington birthday celebration happens at Jacob Purdy House on Park Avenue on Sunday from 1 to 4 p.m. and it's free to celebrate the father of our country's birthday, perhaps the greatest president. He was the first, and he knew how to do it. Now, to the White Plains Week. Video newsreel, March of Time, for February 21st, 2020. And there you see the opening of a news conference held this week by Executive George Latimer on the quarantining of 26 persons returned from the Chinese mainland and quarantined as they came into Westchester. And here is the gist of that press conference.
That in moments like this, we need to be mature and sober in the way we approach things. We have a democracy, which means everybody has a right to an opinion and to express it. Now, go on social media, go on the internet, exchange all kinds of information. But this is a time for sober realities, where speculation, where projections of things that aren't backed up necessarily by fact, where going on the internet and I heard this and I saw this, is not only unhelpful, but it can be negative. It can create a climate of fear that isn't warranted. If this situation advances, we will speak clearly as a county government in every single communication that we have. We're not going to hide anything. But by the same token, we're not going to turn this into a circus, because we will do more damage to this county and this country if we do. I think it's very important for that to be as much a part of the element of the concern here as is the physical concern over the spreading of the virus. So with that, I'm going to ask Dr. Sharlita Ambler.
We want to let you know that we currently have travelers that have come back into the county from areas of the world where COVID-19 cases have occurred. These people are not ill, but we still have to monitor them. Anyone who is coming into the country, into the airports, who have been sick or are sick, showing symptoms of COVID, are being isolated by the CDC, and to date, no sick people with symptoms of COVID-19 have come into the county. The Westchester County Department of Health is currently monitoring 26 individuals. These individuals are all quarantined. This is a voluntary quarantine, most in their homes. We won't test anyone unless they are symptomatic. So people without symptoms wouldn't be tested. But the 14 days is the incubation period. So from the time they're exposed, they could have approximately 14 days to develop symptoms. And so that's basically what you're watching for. You're watching to see if people develop symptoms of the disease. And at that point, you would then test them if they did. So unfortunately, a lot of people really don't know how to wash their hands. And so we tell them, sing happy birthday to yourself twice, because you need about 20 seconds of really vigorous rubbing of your hands with soap. You want to get between the fingers, you want to get on the backs of the hands, as good as you can under your nails, and then rinse thoroughly. If you don't have access to soap and water, a hand sanitizing solution, you can get the nice ones now. They can go in your pocket. Keep that with you. Anytime you've shaken a lot of hands, which I know our county executive, he needs probably a gallon of it, but we want to make sure that, anytime you've shaken a lot of hands, you've touched a lot of doorknobs, those kinds of things, that you're using sanitizer, hand sanitizer. This virus, although it has the potential to be spread from a cough or a sneeze, it doesn't travel very far. It's kind of a heavy virus. So about 6 feet is about as far a distance as it's going to go. So we tell people, if you're in a group of people and somebody is coughing, sneezing, keep 6 foot distance between you and that person. Cover your mouth when you sneeze or cough. And like standing up here, if I had to cough, how would I do that? Well, luckily I have 2 elbows and they come in really handy. So you would just want to cough into your elbow, not on your hands. Why not on your hands? Because then I'm going to shake somebody's hand, I'm going to touch some surface. I sneeze into my elbow, I'm not likely to infect anybody else with that.
So, Shirlita Ambler, Dr. Ambler, Commissioner of Health in Westchester County, with advice there on how to avoid spreading infection and how to avoid catching it, hand washing, and all that. And very good advice. And I asked some questions of the health department about this quarantining, and they answered these things that I thought was concerned about. The individuals are quarantined and they have to stay away from others, and so they are not allowed to leave, and the county supplies them with all the food and supplies that they need. And if they do get sick, the health department nurses are really on top of things, checking them with smartphone video conferencing several times each day. And if more persons are shipped to the county that have been in the China mainland, or possibly where the coronavirus was prevalent, the county would deal with that, see how they would quarantine them if their numbers increased. So that is where the coronavirus stands today. So far, so good. And I thought it was a good press conference and a good action. But I question really not in quarantining them when they arrived at the first port in America. Why ship them and spread them around the country? I don't think that was a good government decision. But that's just my opinion, of which I have a lot of. Now, some good news this week. I interviewed Dan Welch of the Westchester Power. He is their program director, and he gave us some really good news on how energy consortiums, towns are banding together to pool their purchasing hour for electric rates. He also said that consumer restriction of how much power they use needs a lot of work, because they had They have now, in the summer, a very hot summer in 2019, when the peaks of demand are usually reached. This time it was a residential population that had the highest amounts of use. So this is something that has to be worked on, conserving electricity. You can see the complete interview with Mr. Welch on wpcommunitymedia.org or on the internet. And at this point, we have to look at another environmental issue. We have the next slide. We'll go to Fort Lauderdale, and this is what Fort Lauderdale has looked like recently. We learned via the regular media this week, I saw it in an AP dispatch at the beginning of the week, that Fort Lauderdale has experienced breakage in their sewer pipes, which are quite old, about 50 years old, and guess what? Their waters around Fort Lauderdale are absolutely flooded with sewage. 126.9 million gallons has spilled, and at the first sewer main break back on December 10th, men in hazmat suits roamed the Tarpon River daily, scooping up dead fish and other marine life. The city had 6 sewer main breaks during the month of December, from Rio Vista to the Himmershey Canal, Victoria Park, and Coral Ridge. The spills could net the city tens of thousands of dollars of fines. And truly, this is a warning that the county had better finish that study on our sewers fast. And with all the development taking place in New Rochelle and in White Plains, we really need to have a capacity check on our sewers. Same goes for Yonkers. This study has got to be completed fast and work begun. I don't know whether I get money to fix all these sewers. The state does have a fund, but it's woefully inadequate. And this is a point that I cannot understand why this wasn't a national story until this week. Now, in another disaster, and I learned about it from my sister-in-law who lives in Charlotte, North Carolina. Let's have the next slide. And what has happened is that several chemical companies, including DuPont, have been leaking PCBs into the Cape Fear River, and it has absolutely destroyed the drinking water in Brunswick County. Now, I do not understand why organizations are still doing this. And now that the EPA is being emasculated, I mean, it is absolutely a disaster waiting to happen. When are corporations going to get some conscience and stop doing this stuff just to save money? And right now, according to my sister-in-law, they have to supply drinking water to the schools because kids are getting exposed to these PCBs and these chemicals. It's just something that is totally preventable, but corporations just do it because they can and feel they have a right to do it. Well, they don't. And something has to be done about this. And for the fact that it took a nonprofit to discover this pollution is also a disgrace. I mean, truly, the North Carolina primary should be reverberating with this issue. Now, moving along, we had a meeting in the Westchester County Center this week when the delegation of Congress of state legislators convened at the Little Theater in the county center. And this is a shot of the hall. After I arrived there at about 1:15, I thought it was supposed to go to 2. That's what they advertised, but they had all left. And I just want to suggest, folks, if you say you're going to run a meeting for people to speak out from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., you have to stay around, okay? I mean, I was just a reporter, so I didn't count that I couldn't express myself. I just wanted to see what the tail end of it was. But suppose somebody arrived after me at 1:30 or 1:45 when it was an ordinary citizen and wanted to speak. Well, they would have no one to talk to. But of course you can write them, and but no. Hey, legislators, you work for us. We pay your salaries. We're paying you a lot more this year. Stick around. Have a discussion among yourselves of what you'd heard, and use the time wisely, but be there for the people when you say you're going to be there. That was a disgrace. Not a big disgrace, but they shouldn't have done it. Shouldn't have left early. Now, some of the issues that were brought up then were that this is supplied by Kathy Hallis, who told me her observation. There were about 50 people there, and there were some 10 or 12 actually spoke, and they spoke on issues like parole return, the effect of long sentences on people, senior housing at risk, and bail reform, and very general issues, library cuts, library system cutting, and a lot of issues that can only speak for 2 minutes each. But one of the issues that was raised on People to Be Heard last week was by Hasa Lipovac, who is the executive director of the Richmond Community Services, and she talked about a real growing issue, and that is group homes for the disabled, and the fact that they are growing at 2,000 persons who are with disabilities a year in the state, and this is an issue that the state is not addressing. Here's Pasa Lipovac.
I'm glad you asked that because it's a national crisis, really, in trying to get DSPs, which is the line worker for people with developmental disabilities, direct support professional. There is a national shortage of DSPs simply because people who work in that position are grossly underpaid. And the situation is even worse now, specifically in Westchester, because New York City already has this $15 minimum wage. And we relied on, at least for the lower part of the county, we relied on pulling people from the Bronx to come and work up our way. You know how expensive Westchester is to live.
Dedicated.
They're very dedicated. It takes a lot of dedication, it takes a lot of commitment, and it takes a lot of affection for people with developmental disabilities to do this job, because the job is not easy. And we are really not paying people as much as they need to be paid to live in Westchester.
At least a minimum wage?
Well, people do get a minimum wage, but you know, let's talk about what minimum wage buys you. If our starting salary is around $13 in the county of Westchester, $13 doesn't buy you enough. And I know that a couple of months ago they came out with a number of affordable housing units that are still necessary in Westchester, and it's about 80. Yes, 80,
and that's a joke, because that's 2,000 per town and city.
Yes.
Needed. There's not place for that.
Yes, but the problem is that when you're paying somebody $13, $14, $15 an hour, they cannot find the housing that they can afford in the county. And so therefore it makes it not just for the developmental disabilities field, but for home care, for nursing homes, wherever these essential workers, healthcare workers, are absolutely necessary to be supporting people who need them, are needed, and we just cannot hire enough. We can't hire enough, we cannot retain them, because they will... Oh, we all have tremendous turnover, at least 40% annually of our workforce turns over, which is really, it's between 25 and 45, depending where you are, what agency.
Because of the pay?
Mostly because of the pay. Mostly because of the pay.
You like
Because
the job, but they just need
you have a family to feed.
Yes.
You have a family to feed,
Sure.
you cannot. There is a tremendous shortage in the last, probably in 7, 8, maybe even 10 years. There was really a decrease in number of homes being developed. And for a while, the only homes that were developed were homes for children who lived in residential schools. And once they get to the age of 21, they age out of those schools. So houses were only developed for them. People who lived with their parents or their family members and did not go to residential school were pretty much pushed down the priority list. And there was very little, little to none, development in Westchester. Cost plays a tremendous.
And it's very important what she says because group homes are needed for parents who have aged out and their children are too big for them to really take care of physically, and it's just something the state has let go for about 15 years now since Governor Pataki and Libby Pataki, his wife, started New York Cares, and there was a big interest in this. But anyway, you can see the complete interview with Ms. Lipovac also on WPCommunitymedia.org. Now, we had someone declare that they're going to launch a campaign for a seat, and his name is Adam Schliefer, who is running for David Buchwald's seat. David, who's running for Nita Lowey's seat, actually, challenging David Buchwald. And also running in that race, and this is huge, Catherine Borgia, David Carlucci, Asha Castleberry Hernandez, Evelyn Farkas, Allison Fine, Delta Ginn, John Jabor, Dwayne Jackson, Mondaire Jones, David Katz, Lola Osoria, Catherine Parker, and Joanna Rodriguez Wheeler. And Mr. Schliefer is starting his campaign on February 29th. He had an event in White Plains. But really, that's a lot of people, and it's winner take all. They're not going to have a runoff in it, and this is going to be a very wild race. So it's fascinating to me that so many people want this. But be that as it may, that's what happened. And now, debate. And boy, it was a mumble on Wednesday night. I felt it was very poorly moderated. The attacking of Mike Bloomberg was just, I've never seen anything like it. And Mr. Bloomberg seemed absolutely shocked that he was treated this way, but unfortunately, Democrat positions are still all over the lot, and no strong contender is really emerging that I think can beat Mr. Trump. Mr. Biden, I thought, did reasonably well, you know, taking credit for virtually everything the Obama administration did, and I thought that was interesting. But anyway, it still remains to be seen what happens next. And now, the Winbrook building that is being torn down finally was taken down to ground level last week. This is a shot from last weekend. And now we can get going on building 2. They have built 1 building in 13 years, and at this rate, it's going to take, let's see, another 40 years to get that project done. Hopefully they move it a little faster. And now, right now, we want to tell you all about a new White Plains extent to effort to market itself. And they unveiled a new, basically 4-minute commercial, which I think is a real step in the right direction for the city. It's very professional, and there are some things they leave out, like the low real estate taxes in White Plains, and there was that, and some of the nuts and bolts facts that would really have helped promote the city better. But then on the other hand, you can do just so much. So let's look at this right now. This is produced by a organization based in the city, and you can read all about them on my website, WPCNR.com. And right now, let's take a look.
Present. Fire. From the Revolutionary War until today, White Plains has been at the center of it all. We're a vital community, so much happening, so much going on. We're a progressive community in every way you can think of.
Really different from some of the surrounding communities.
It's kind of like the hidden gem.
I can be in Manhattan in 35 minutes.
It's such a nice, diverse population.
It's a mini city. It's a great town to live in.
White Plains has it all.
While we are a city of over 50,000, we're really like a small town.
First word that comes to my mind is family.
It's nice having a place of business where, we call it our own, and we also call everyone who comes here part of our family.
Not only is the school system fantastic, but there are tons of parks.
It also is convenient to commuting to the city.
A lot of people that work in the city rear their families here and go to school here. White Plains, you have the best of both worlds. It's a small city, but yet a nice community.
White Plains is a tight-knit community, and people are willing to support each other in any endeavor.
The city cares about its residents.
We work hard to make things easier here for the people that live here, people who work here, the people who play here, and there are a lot of all three.
We have a melting pot that's incredible.
In terms of age, in terms of gender, in terms of race, religion, all kinds of things, you can find it all here in White Plains.
Not only do I see people who look like me, but I see people who don't look like me.
We were the first school district in the state of New York to voluntarily desegregate.
The residents, they accept people for who they are.
What really separates White Plains from other communities is the vibe, the feeling that when you live here, you're part of something larger than yourself.
I don't know what my life would be if I didn't grow up in White Plains.
A lot of the surrounding towns might have a one-block kind of town or village, but once you get past that one block, there's really no place else to walk. Whereas with White Plains, you could pretty much keep on walking and you're always going to find something to do.
We love the diversity, the restaurants, the people.
In the summer and into early fall, you have the farmers market with all this great fresh food. They have all the summer concert series where you can sit outside and enjoy the live music.
We have a performing arts center that provides really high quality programming.
You have good hospitals, good schools, colleges, Fortune 500 companies. It's accessible to anywhere, 287, 95, Connecticut, upstate New York. You have Westchester Airport.
White Plains probably is the most convenient city to live in when it comes to Westchester.
One of the community features that I particularly enjoy taking advantage of is the public schools.
Our education is phenomenal.
The White Plains City School District is a school district that serves over 7,200 children. We can offer programming that other school districts just can't because of our size. So everything from STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math opportunities to enrichment opportunities.
Who offers Mandarin in middle school? Who offers a STEM program K through 5 for every single child?
I have a lot of my friends that live in the city that are looking to move out to this area because of the school system. And you're surrounded by great schools, public and private.
I don't think I can sum up White Plains in just one word, but the thoughts that come to mind are diversity,
accessible,
exciting,
history,
the best of both worlds.
The best of both worlds.
It's very convenient.
Feels like a family.
Small town in a big city.
We love White Plains.
In White Plains, the tide rises for everyone. All boats float.
White Plains is a great place to live. I'm proud to be a resident. I'm proud to raise my family here. And being mayor is just icing on the cake.
That's a beautiful thing.
Wow, very impressive video. And I would say that it's high time. I'm glad the city finally headed in this direction and produced this. And I've been advocating a real outreach effort for White Plains to promote itself, and this is a start in the right direction. So right now, that brings us to the end of another White Plains Week. This is John Bailey saying so long for Jim Benaroff, and good night for White Plains Week.
This has been White Plains Week, news and commentary about White Plains, Westchester, and the world. The views and opinions expressed on this program were solely those of the participants. White Plains Week, produced by White Plains Citizen Net reporter and presented on Optimum Cable Channel 76 and Verizon Fios Channel 45. You may view White Plains Week anytime on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, and wpcommunitymedia.org. For White Plains Week, this is Peter Katz speaking.